And yes, while conflicts overseas is putting lives at risk, a misunderstanding back in the US is quietly putting the legal status of thousands of Indian tech professionals at risk, which, by the way, is our next story. Well, for thousands of Indian professionals working in the US tech industry, a layoff does not mean losing a job. It can also put their immigration status at risk. And one misunderstanding in particular is creating serious problem for many H-1B visa holders. Well, when companies announce layoffs, they often offer severance packages that continue for 2, 3, or even 6 months. Naturally, many employees assume that as long as they are still receiving salary or severance payment, their H-1B status remains active. But that's not how US immigration rules actually work. Ladies and gentlemen, the 60-day H-1B grace period generally starts after your employment ends, not when your severance payment stops. In other words, your bank account may still be receiving money from your former employer, but your immigration clock, it could already be ticking. And that's where many people, they make a costly mistake. Well, some professionals spend weeks believing that they have plenty of time because their severance, it is still coming in. But by the time they realize the grace period has already begun, they have far fewer days left to just find a new sponsor or take the next legal step. According to the uncertainty in the changing legal landscape around the US immigration policy, ongoing court cases and policy debates have made some employers more cautious about hiring foreign workers. As a result, H-1B transfer processes can sometimes take longer than expected, precisely when applicants are racing against a 60-day deadline. Now, what should you do if you are laid off? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the solution rather. First, ask your employer for written confirmation of your last working day. Don't assume your severance end day and your employment end day are the same one. Second, keep a close eye on your immigration document, specifically your I-94 record. And if finding a new employer within the grace period seems unlikely, speak to a qualified immigration attorney early to understand the legal options available to you. Because when it comes to immigration, timing is everything. Making an important deadline by even a few days, it can create complications that are much harder to fix later on. Well, for thousands of Indian students, getting admission to an American university is more than just earning a degree. It is the first step towards building a career in the US. The usual plan is simple: complete your studies, work through the OPT, optional practical training, gain experience, and eventually move to an H-1B visa. But that pathway, it could become much more expensive if a new proposal moves forward. Ladies and gentlemen, reports suggest that the US Department of Homeland Security is considering a proposal that could attach a $100,000 fee to post-graduation work authorization under the OPT program. Now, at this stage, it's only a proposal, not a final rule, but even the possibility has sparked concern among students, universities, and employers. Now, to understand why this matters, let's first understand what OPT actually is. OPT allows international students on F1 visa to work in the US after graduation. For STEM graduates, that work period can extend up to 3 years, making OPT one of the most important bridges between university life and full-time employment. Now imagine adding a 6-figure cost to that particular bridge. If students are expected to pay it themselves, it could make working in the US financially impossible for many families who have already spent heavily on tuition fee and living expenses. On the other hand, if employers are required to bear the cost here, many startups and mid-sized companies may simply stop hiring international graduates altogether. The impact? It wouldn't stop there. Indian students make up one of the largest international student communities in the US, right? American universities also depend heavily on international enrollment, specifically in STEM program, by the way. Any major change to the OPT system, it could influence where students choose to study in future, with countries like Canada, Australia, Germany, and even India now becoming stronger alternative. So, what should the students do now? Well, let me help you with that. The first step, very, very simple, don't panic. Well, no final policy has been announced yet. Instead, keep following official updates from the Department of Homeland Security and stay in regular contact with your university's International Student Office. If you are planning your long-term career, it is also wise to explore multiple immigration pathways instead of relying on just one option, because immigration rules can change. The more prepared you are, the more choices you will have.